let's call the meeting to order. It's 7:05. First order on the agenda is, so I guess the first thing tonight is we don't have a quorum, so there are no minutes to really approve tonight. Second item on the agenda would be public comment, but I don't think we have any this evening, so we can move along to number 4 on the agenda, which is the Beautification and Commercial Property Owners Forum. So we've met a couple times regarding the beautification project, and we've identified some concerns but not issues that we need to tackle. Basically what we want to do is take the business district and add some sort of continuity to it with flower pots and planters around the walkable areas of the business district in Woodbridge. We have a good plan, and we've identified all the areas where these planters would be located, as outlined on the maps that are in front of you guys. I don't know if the camera would pick this stuff up, but the planters would be something like a half a barrel, basically your old school wine barrels, and we would have corresponding flowers that would be matched up around the business district as seasonally appropriate. A couple of the issues that we've come across is what will we do in the winter? Will these baskets withstand the plows and snow and salt and things like that? And we're working on ways to figure out what we do if they're out on the curbs of the property. Will we move them back for the winter and things like that? And we've identified a couple of vendors that could possibly help us with the planting and basically the refreshing of the soil and the flowers as seasonally appropriate as years go on. We've talked to Amity Garden Center in Bethany, and they actually are the ones that do the refreshing and the replenishing of the flowers and the soil at Blue Check. So they do that already as a service, so we're working with them to find out what the cost would be for them to do that on a seasonal basis. We have identified that if we did the wooden planters and we were to buy the bulk of them from Home Depot, they're about $45 each. We have 100 of them that we've identified. So I mean, it seems like the first year our budget would cover the planter itself, and then we talk to whoever the vendor is that would be doing the servicing of the planters to find out what the cost would be to put in the soil and the flowers and bulbs as we move along. Brooks is here, I'll let him come sit down. So I think that's where we are on this. We've identified basically the most walkable areas and the areas that we think need a little bit of beautification. And I guess the things that we've talked about is a wooden barrel better than a resin barrel, because a resin sort of a planter would be withstanding of the elements, the snow, the salt, the rain, that kind of stuff, because it's a plastic sort of a composite, versus wood, which will eventually, degrade and rot.
So I did speak just to that point. I spoke with Amity Gardens, and they said the barrels that they would be able to buy for us wholesale, I don't have a price yet back, but they told me they use oak, and that's pretty weather resistant.
Good.
So they would, he, can't give me a guarantee on how long they would last, but as far as wood goes, it's
Good.
pretty good.
Interestingly enough, I was walking out the back door of the town hall, and
There's
there's
one down there.
right there. So,
And that one's outside year round.
yeah,
And they look nice. I mean, every time I drive by Blue Check now, I look out and look to just see what they look like out there. And I think they would be nice to dress up the business district. I guess what some of the concerns are was what I said before, but others are cost and how we're going to budget to have these and ongoingly be filled and refreshed and look nice as the seasons progress. So I guess when we get concrete numbers, then we can address, putting in, we'll have a budget that will either be able to work with and ask the town for going forward. And if we're in charge of, and if we get the money to budget for the servicing of these, it'll be a great project. I think it'll be nice. I think the business owners will be happy, the property owners will be happy, and the residents of Woodbridge will be happy to see flowers in the various districts that they're going, the various areas that they're going to shop in.
The town of Farmington did something on a much smaller scale. I think they did it on maybe boulevards. They weren't doing it in front of almost every business, but they figured out the cost for what it would be to change out the flowers seasonally, and they asked businesses to sponsor them. And some businesses would do one, someone would do half a dozen or a dozen. So we, depending on what I hear from Amity Gardens about the cost, that's another route that we could go.
Okay.
And one of our brainstorming sessions a few meetings ago too, we talked about possibly getting some local volunteers, right? Various
Yeah.
groups. I mean, I think we came up with like a dozen groups just off the top of our head that we could try to.
Yeah, no,
So-
absolutely. I think that if we, volunteers to do the actual planting is one thing, but volunteers to buy the soil and the bulbs
No, I'm
and
talking about like
flowers is-
the maintenance and.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be, we're gonna have to ask the business owners or the property owners to take it upon themselves to water.
Oh, sure, yeah.
The planters and things like that. But the actual planting, if we can find volunteers, whether it be the scouts or something like that, it'd be great. I think it's a good project for the scouts, and I think it'd be nice for the town to see them active in the neighborhood, sort of sprucing these, planters up. And I think it's gonna be, so the other part of this is the commercial property owners forum, and I think introducing this to the property owners will be a big part of this, to find out what they think about it, whether they want to sponsor it themselves, if they think that it's something they wanna throw a couple bucks at, so that we can, move this forward. I mean, we're trying to do something nice for that district where they own property. And I'm curious and looking forward to hearing what they have to say about the project. Anything else that?
Well, just to your question, Sean, one of the things that came up at the last subcommittee meeting about this was that the amount of work that would go into coordinating and organizing different groups to do this it could be really easy or it could be really difficult. And the
prohibitive or-
concern was that,
Okay.
planters on Litchfield looked nice and ones on Amity didn't, or
So
something like that.
Like a uniformity kind of a.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I don't think that's been ruled out. It's just, it'd be a lot easier, depending on the cost, to have a vendor do it.
Gotcha. Okay.
But it'll be a nice way to dress up our downtown area, and I'm very curious to see what the property owners have to say. I think it's gonna be a nice topic to talk about and see where they go with that. I don't know, am I missing anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. And then the commercial property owners forum, we're having, what's the date?
So the draft letter is in here. It's February 4th
Right.
and the 5th.
Okay. So we're gonna have two property owner forums for the commercial business district. One would be Tuesday, February 4th at 6 p.m. And then the next one, we'd have two of them. The next would be the next day at 9 a.m. That way, if folks are busy in the evening, they can come in the morning, or if they're more morning people, they can come in the evening, either way. And we're gonna roll that out to the property owners in the next week or so.
Is it and or?
I think it's and, right? We're gonna do
Or.
two.
Two forms, but it's the same information. So it's
Oh,
just
okay.
whatever's easier for
Oh,
their
I see.
schedule.
Okay.
Yeah. So the subcommittee has volunteered to be at both of those meetings, and we definitely welcome any of the other commissioners who want to be at them. But we do 6 p.m. on Tuesday, February 4th, and then 9 a.m. on February 5th at the Legion Avenue room at the JCC. JCC's already committed to it. They're okay with it, and we can use their room for free, and we'll bring in some breakfast items or snacking items for the evening meeting. And the goal is to find out and to meet with the commercial district property owners to find out, what they want from EDC, what their concerns are, what their aspirations are, and, if they have any input on what we're doing. I think it's important that we address those folks that are in the business district and own property in the business district, because we wanna grow it, but we wanna grow it in a way that everyone's sort of committed to it and a part of it as a team. So we're looking forward to that meeting. You have any thoughts?
Just curious as to the interchange, work that's being done. I don't know if there's any updates, if there's
Oh.
anything to be,
I could ask for
Discuss.
updates. They don't
might
tell
be-
me anything unless I ask.
right, so I'm just thinking it might be another added item that the business owners might be interested in hearing about and incent them to come.
That's a good idea.
Sure. You talking about the exits?
Yes, yes, and I know there's a lot of the work is hopefully coming to a conclusion.
Well, I
But
think,
even that update would be helpful.
I think the asphalt plants are closed for the season, so I assume.
It is what it is for this,
Yeah,
until the spring.
until the spring,
Right.
yeah.
Well, it's gonna be 60 on Saturday.
Yeah.
So, but nonetheless, it's just,
Yeah.
do they have a schedule? Are they saying
Yeah.
by June it's gonna be done, or by September, or
Yeah, I'll definitely ask.
2030, you know?
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
So I guess the next item on the agenda is the resident and business survey, and I'll turn over to Sean.
Okay, so, we had a first draft of this, a few meetings ago, and it was, a rough draft, very lengthy. We all, as a group went over it, on the screen there, and, we took the feedback. Betsy implemented, made a lot of the edits, so we tightened it up quite a bit. I made some edits as well, so we're less than 3 pages now, 20 questions, added some clarity about, things that were, might not be applicable, and just to, in terms of, guidance through the survey. I feel like the fact that this is our first, real, effort at having a survey, I think it's decent enough to, put out there. I think, businesses will, appreciate, the fact that we do have a survey, and trying to solicit some of their input and feedback. And, I really see it as something that's, going to evolve over time. That's really the case with, the kickoff of a survey, especially if it's gonna be a regular recurring survey over time. We'll take a lot of the feedback, and we can, trim some stuff out, as we get feedback, and also, maybe, add some questions. So, I guess maybe, folks on the commission have any more, thoughts on potential edits, I could, take those into account. And
We're gonna roll this out at the property owners meeting.
Well, I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you feel like it's ready?
and even if it's not, we've got a few weeks before February, so, I think we could definitely roll this out for
Okay.
that meeting, yeah.
Okay.
That would apply,
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity to
Yeah,
get in front of
yeah.
those folks, at least
yeah.
we're ready.
Also get their input, if they think the questions are good and not good,
Right,
you can hand
yeah,
it to them, they can look at it right away. and
Yeah,
just
we're
say,
not gonna know
get some
anything until
feedback.
we get it out there.
Right.
Number 17, you have 1 to 5, but there's 4 items.
I just noticed that, because one of the questions was, have a forum, and I thought, by the time this goes out, the
Yeah,
forum
when-
will have happened.
Also, you can add that one back in there then. Oh, no. Yeah, you're right, so it'll,
But I did wanna draw your attention to question number 19, which is something that I just added. Would you be interested in a Woodbridge Business Association? And the, retail group that meets regularly has been talking, occasionally this comes up as, it would be more, they feel like it could be more effective to have more businesses from different sectors to come together to have these kind of big picture conversations on a regular basis. And so Sean and I talked really briefly about, would that be redundant to the EDC, and how would we make sure that it's different? I think EDC really does a lot of kind of big picture policy stuff, and I feel like a business association would probably be much more kind of nitty gritty kind of events,
Yeah.
more hyper-focused type things.
I agree, and like I think in our last meeting, we were talking about, Debbie brought up like having like a little block party for businesses or something like that, or I think that'd be a perfect thing for a WBA to like wrap their heads around and like talk about putting together and stuff like that.
And they'd have more sense of what sort of things are needed or would be well received.
Yeah, I
agree.
think.
Okay.
I think it's great.
Alright, so if you guys have any thoughts on changes that you wanna see to the survey before the forum, either let me know and I can make those edits or.
We can email the group as a total for our thoughts on the edit.
Yeah, you just can't have a conversation, so
Okay.
it could be like a one-sided brain dump,
Or
or
should
you
it
could
be a
just email me.
subcommittee before then, or something like that?
What do you think, Sean? So we could have, we could set up a special meeting just to talk about this, and anyone who wants to attend could attend. Or, I mean, what do you feel like would be necessary or useful?
Yeah, I think that might set us back a little bit if we wanna get this out for, that meeting, or, for the,
For the
for that
forum.
forum. I think if, there's some feedback and we can just, aim it like,
Send it
directionally
straight
at you individually, because that's okay.
Yeah.
That might be better, in the better interest of time.
Okay, and then we could have this at the forum, and then I think the EDC meeting is the week after, so we could kind of debrief and see if there's things that you feel like you weren't getting answers that you were expecting, or if there's things that we're missing.
Yeah, and I think we've looked at this and talked about it a number of times, so putting it in front of folks that haven't seen it before will be a nice way to get a little bit more input before we roll it out to the town.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and the foundation, for the survey, I mean, it's
Yeah, no, it's
a lot of
good.
the questions
Sure.
were, from a template, so.
Yep. So I guess we'll table number 6 on the agenda item?
Yeah, so the only thing that Cleo and Toby both told me is that they both felt like they needed time to kind of have a more in-depth discussion on the issue. So they'd like to set a meeting to talk just about that. So my thought was, since neither of them are here, was I could send an email out to folks and maybe pose a few times. And anyone who, it would be considered an EDC special meeting, but this would be the only topic on the agenda. And so folks who are interested could, express their interest, and we'd try to set the schedule around whoever wants to attend to have that discussion. So it might, depending on who wants to come, it might be during the day, it might be on the evening. Could schedule it around whoever's interested in the topic.
On to number 7, networking and resources for business. Is that you?
Yes, so I've been continuing to hold the meetings with the wellness businesses and the retail groups. And we've got a poster out right now about health and wellness. So we did a poster about holiday events, and now people are starting to think about getting healthy after all that holiday eating. So these posters are up around town hall and local businesses and all the businesses that are listed on here. The response has been pretty positive. But the idea is we have so many businesses and a lot of them are tucked away and people don't know that they exist. So I'm trying to do a lot of cross promotion so that if you're at your barber, or like you said, your doctors are all in the same area. If you're at your doctor's, you don't know that there's a masseuse who's also in the same building. Or if you're at the barber, you might not know that there's a sports center in town. So trying to help businesses get the word out about what's going on in town. So that's that. And then the retail group had come up with this idea of a month-long promotion. A local businesswoman had seen another town do something similar to this. So instead of having a one-day sale when you can't possibly go to 5 restaurants or all the stores to hit the one-time sale, she'd suggested doing a month-long sale. So this is a very rough draft. And inside it will have listed all of the businesses that are hosting a sale or special for the month of February. And they chose February because it's a pretty slow month. So these would be sent to any of the participating businesses. They'd be encouraged to post these or on their Facebook page, website, have them in their storefront, and they'd also be at town offices and online on the town's website. So again, the idea is doing a lot of cross promotion, trying to get the word out about the breadth of offerings that we have in
Library
town.
as well?
Yes, the library also. So if you guys know of any local businesses that might be interested in something, please help spread the word. And then I'm hoping this month or next month to start a group for artists, local artists, to get together and talk about any business needs they might have if they need help finding space to show their wares or coordinating something. I get the sense that we have a lot of artists in town, but I don't think there's really any centralized way for them to be in touch with each other and maybe collaborate.
How many different groups are meeting right now? Just the retail and health, is that?
Yeah,
Okay.
just the two right now.
Is the time of the month the same?
Yeah, so
Always.
wellness is the first Friday of every month, and that meets here at Town Hall. Excuse me. And the retail and service group is the third Wednesday of the month, and that's at Coachman Square.
Okay.
And the daycare directors, I got together with them. I think there are 6 or 7 daycares in town. We got
Wow.
together last summer, and they said that winter is a better time for them, so I'm trying to organize something for them either this month or next month. And that's probably only going to be an annual meeting,
I'd like to go
not
to some of
monthly.
these,
What's that, I'm sorry?
I'd like to go to a couple of them.
Oh,
so,
okay. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, so I'm
definitely.
hoping to do artists soon, see if there's anything that the town can do to help them.
Was Children's House Montessori included?
Yes.
Oh, awesome, good.
Mhm. Yeah. And then for my staff report, wanted you all to know that last summer there was a group of residents that we called the Complete Streets team. And they were focused on supporting biking and walking in town. And they came up with some areas that cyclists use frequently and where pedestrians would like to or do use a lot. So pink are the areas on the map where people are biking a lot, and the Complete Streets team thought it would be really useful to have either bike lanes or wider shoulders to provide a little more security. And green is where they thought it would be useful to have sidewalks. So it's mostly down in the business district, but also up here at Town Center where we've got the high school, the library, town hall, the cornfields, a lot of different things, and also the ball fields on Center Road. So a lot of sort of destinations where people could be walking if they felt safe enough to do so. And I've got a survey out. There's a physical copy that I put at all of your places. It's also online. So I'm trying to get feedback from folks about, is this map something they agree with? Do they want to see more? Have I left out things? Do they disagree? And I put it online this morning and I've already had 60 responses. So I've been blown away by the response from people. But I think this would go a long way to really helping the kind of community feel a little more connected. And I think we have a lot of outdoorsy, healthy, active people who would like to see this sort of resource.
Where would we be able to post that on the town website once we?
It
come
is on
to
the town website.
That map with
Yes.
pink and the
Mhm.
green is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've got one out in the hallway here, and I'm gonna put one at the library tomorrow.
Under what tab or whatever?
It's on the
site?
homepage
It is?
in the
Okay.
news section. Yeah, I just put it up this morning.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other thing I wanted to let you all know about is, I think I've told you the posters and the February specials. So. So that's it for me.
I guess we're not gonna really discuss the meeting time change with nobody here. And I don't know that it's gonna be that easy to do this year with people's commuting schedules and everything else. And maybe in the future we can talk about time change, but it's hard for Toby to get down here by earlier than 7:00 and things like that, so I don't know if we'll be able to adjust the times to be able to have a full group together. I don't know. It would be nice, but
Whatever the group thinks. I'm gonna go back on your agenda if I might, just for a
Yeah,
moment, just
please.
in regard to your staff reports, just to add. I just felt it would be good to make sure that you folks knew 3 ordinances were passed. They went through public session, and the there was an amendment made to the blighted, ordinance. There's a stormwater ordinance that just basically brought us up to, specifications of the state. And there was also an agricultural commission that was started.
Okay, sorry.
And I do feel like that certainly, if not the others, that certainly, kind of plays into a little bit about what you're doing as well. So there will be an agricultural commission established. A lot of conversation going on now as relates to the cone farm. So the Ag Commission was brought up a number of times, and business was brought up a number of times, so I thought it is something the EDC should be aware of.
I just have two questions. One would be, could we, as the EDC, meet with the Agricultural Commission?
Once they're established and the members are there, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good,
Sure.
it'd be a good
Sure.
topic for one of our meetings.
So I'm
And
sure they would welcome it.
What was the change to the blighted property?
But there was a language that was added that was more, it's interesting because it's broadens it in one sense and brings it a little bit more specific in another. It basically added a clause that indicates that the properties must stay in line with other properties in the neighborhood and should not be detracting from the character and values of the houses in respective neighborhoods. But then it goes on to also indicate grass can't be more than 14 inches for more than 1 month. And you can't leave rubbish, logs, fallen trees and logs in the front and things of that nature. So there's some specific language in terms of things that can go out and be quantified. And then there's kind of a broader sense to it in the sense of, you may not meet a very finite type of a metric, but overall things aren't. And the intent is that there's a number of, there seems to be kind of a sense by a number of folks in the town that the standard is not being held, if you will. And it's very important, particularly in town now with property values declining and things of that nature, that things don't happen to further that, so.
If a resident thinks that there's a blighted property in their neighborhood, who do they
They
reach
go
out to?
downstairs to the building department and they
Yep.
file a complaint, there's a form that's filled out, or you can call in and it'll be investigated. And then, obviously, depending on what they find, they determine what action needs to be taken. And basically, you would be given an opportunity to remediate the issue. Just
Right.
correct the issue, nothing, and that's as far as it goes. If not, then you can be fined. And if you find and you don't pay, then there can be a lien on your property, that type of thing there. But that's pretty consistent, that's not new.
What's the magnitude of the fine?
I don't know off the top of my head, Brooks, I'm sorry, I don't recall, but
Big
it's not.
box or a barn?
No, more
Red
kind of,
box.
like it's in the hundreds, if I'm not mistaken, or can be, depending on what it is. Significant, like for
Right.
example, a blighted property where, if it's a big building falling down and things of that nature is different, but.
Yeah.
But in this case, it wouldn't be thousands of dollars or anything along
Right.
those lines, at least not initially, but it continues to grow, and that's where it gets kind of a little, and there's language in there to allow for hardships, like if somebody's elderly and just physically can't get it done, so that something can be done to mitigate that, and there's also an appeal process.
Any word on the contract negotiations on the country club?
Nothing specific, it's closer than it was. We do expect to hear from there's a different lawyer, a lawyer who's specific to this type of a project, who's working with the
Developers?
developers. And there's 3 lawyers involved now. Ours, the architect and then the builder, the developer and then the builder, I'm sorry. So it's taking a little bit more time from that perspective in terms of negotiating, but Beth is hopeful that we'll have some information in the near term, maybe in time for our next meeting. So we do expect people to come into the next meeting to speak about it, but I'm not sure if it'll be public or executive session.
And was any opinion rendered on whether they thought it might be good to have developer put up some kind of bond to make sure they
Yes,
can
it's not possible in this particular environment, but Jerry said that he would give me all the background on that so that I can share that with you. Not you
Okay.
specifically, but with the group that asked.
Right.
So, but yes,
It's not possible because, why? Because of the contract that's already been negotiated?
no, no,
Oh,
not
okay.
at all. No, it's because of it was more, can't be done in this situation as opposed to we're too far down the line. So they did consider it, looked at it, and identified that that specifically was not possible. So I don't recall the exact words Jerry said. I have notes in terms of when I
Right.
talked to him, and I'm
Right.
sorry I didn't bring them, so.
And did they even like try to estimate what the risk might be if to the town if there is failure on the developer's part?
I don't know if they've specifically gotten that far.
Okay,
But, what would be helpful for me is, as I say, next meeting, we may have the attorney here.
right,
So if you have some questions, if you can email them to Betsy, it'd be great to have them, so that you'll be able to ask them very specifically what's going on there.
okay,
So, and I will still follow up with Jerry to get the
all right,
information,
thank you,
because I did ask him, before our last meeting about that.
right.
There were some tentative dates for meetings for,
Off.
so those are now
Correct.
just, okay,
Correct.
that makes
Nothing,
sense.
there's
If
no- right.
Yeah,
Yeah, nothing.
okay,
The one thing that was discussed is that there are state statutes that dictate exactly what has to happen if you schedule, to schedule a referendum. You have to have a meeting, and then within 14 days, you have to have this done, and then within 30 days, you have to have that done.
yeah,
So those timeframes were outlined
Yeah.
for the folks who were here, but no dates have been established.
okay, that makes sense.
And they didn't even offer any tentative ones at this point.
Right, yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, yeah.
So Mika brought up two things that made me think of something I wanted to let you all know about. I just received an email this morning. I'm not sure what State Department is doing it, but there's going to be an agriculture forum in early February, and they wanted me to invite any EDC members, ag members. I don't know that we'll have ag members quite at that point, but I'll certainly forward that to all of you for the, impact that agriculture has
Like a
on
statewide.
economic development.
Early
Statewide
February?
agriculture.
A regional one,
Regional?
yeah, it's the Greater New Haven something, I can't remember which
Okay.
organization is putting it on, but it's in early February, and then, I believe I sent you all an email last week, I think, about a housing forum in Seymour, and that's next week, I think, and that ties in a little bit to what, you guys had talked about quite a while ago relating to the CERC report and about housing values and how in Woodbridge we are heavily reliant on housing for property tax, and we have mostly one type of housing, so large single-family homes in town. And so when the value of large single-family homes changes, that can really affect the economy here in town for better or for worse. And so the housing forum is really about a diversity of housing choices. So I sent it out to you guys, to several other boards and commissions that I thought would be potentially interested in the topic.
Actually, it did sound very interesting, and I'm gonna be away, so I will not be able to attend.
I think Cleo is gonna go, and I'll be there as well.
Oh, I had one more a question. The website for adding the commercial property stuff, adding CERC, or the CERC site finder.
It's on my list, I just haven't gotten to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do we need to do? I mean, I can help move it along if there's something that I can help.
I think I just need to fill out a small form and give them some money. And it's an annual thing, and I'm not sure
Right.
if it's annual from whenever I do it, or if it's annual January to December, so
December,
it's on my list to do this month.
Okay. Anything else?
A lot of activity in regards to the firehouse. The board did vote specifically to continue negotiation with the Amity School Board to see about the transitions program on the second floor. And they're still identifying different things that can be done with the rest of the space there. One area will house the old fire truck and some probably right now. And they're kind of collectively looking at the different, and the fitness center is also, putting a fitness center in there was also discussed, as well as a general meeting space similar to what the library has, multi-purpose type room.
Yeah.
So,
Are there any zoning restrictions on having like a coffee shop there?
yes, apparently there
There
are.
are.
Yeah,
Man,
yeah, that's been brought up quite a bit.
it would just be ideal.
What is the, condition of that space?
It's being renovated completely, and here's what the concern or challenge is right now. We secured a grant, and we secured, obviously, the insurance money associated with when it burned down. That was enough to do, we had to use the grant we had to do the work in order to use the grant, in order to,
It's
take advantage
ironic
of
that
it.
it burned down.
I'm sorry. Yeah, and it took a while, but they've used that money. I think you've probably
Yeah.
seen some construction there. But that's not enough to completely bring the inside of the building up to where it needs to be. A lot of roof work had to be done, and there's more that needs to be done still. So right now, it's not in any shape to be used.
Right.
Is really what it boils down to. Most of what they spent the money on was kind of infrastructure, just to make it, it's electrical.
Solid.
Exactly, that type of thing there. It's gonna take considerable more funds to make it usable, which was a concern, at this point in time. But the high school indicated that there was potential for them to use it for the transition program, and that means that they would be, in a sense, paying the town for use of it, so we would be recouping dollars, and those dollars aren't, it's not like you're taking it out of your pocket to pay for school and then they're paying us back. It's more, they're using, otherwise they would have to send the kids somewhere else.
Right.
So we're getting the money instead of somebody else getting it, type of thing.
Right.
That's the understanding so far. And then, so if that occurs, then that's a means by which we could pay whatever bond we need to take out to do the rest of the work.
How, roughly, do they have an estimate of what it would be to rehabilitate it to?
If I recall correctly, Brooks, it was upwards of $1.2 million. It was up in that area.
Wow.
Yeah. It's additional, in addition to
Wow.
what they've already put in.
Okay.
And I think I heard something about, like, there was talking about scoping out the mechanicals, but you can't really do that yet because you wanna kind of figure out what the space is gonna
Correct.
be.
Correct.
What
The
it's gonna
mechanicals
be
will-
serving, right?
right.
Yeah.
Some of the mechanicals are done what they could do.
Right.
That's the word I was looking for instead of infrastructure. But, yeah, you're right. There's more that needs to be done. Knowing what's going in there will help. And there is an architect who will be working to define exactly how it's gonna be done so it can be moved forward. So just so you're aware in case you get asked about different things. And I think that was it.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
Alright. It was a short meeting. I guess I'll call the meeting, can I take a motion to adjourn the meeting? Sean?
Second.
Second.
Get to watch UConn women.
Alright. Have a good evening, everyone. We're adjourned at 8:43.
7:43.
7:43, sorry.
Record time.